No.
Oilers Live Podcast.
Now, get ready to talk hockey. Streaming from the Oilers Live Studio. Subscribe or follow today.
Hey. Not Michael here. Dash here. It's another edition of Oilers Live. We've got a special Thursday edition for you this time. I'm not going to lie, I'm starting this one a little bit rattled, and let me tell you why. Anybody that tuned in last week knows that the boss of the network named me the new associate host of Oilers Live, and, you know, we all know Michael's a bit of a type A personality and likes to be number one, and there's nobody that coaches a team that likes to have an associate name beside them, but lo and behold, the boss of heavy hockey and the man behind the curtain decided to make sure that I was involved more, and Michael didn't like it. So right before the show, he stormed off and he quit. He's done. So here we are. I'll try to get through the show and see what we can do to patch this together. And you know, if you're worried about Michael, make sure you DM him and find out what's going on. But we'll move on and we'll march on. And in order to do that, I've brought somebody onto the show with us. He's a lifelong Buffalo Sabres fan. He's also an Oilers supporter, so we'll give him a little bit of a break. He's a friend of the network at Heavy Hockey, but he's certainly a friend of mine. You can find Jeff at ADE780, Ade780 on Twitter. Welcome to Oilers Live tonight with me. Jeff, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good, man. Thanks for having me, Dash.
Very, very happy to have you. You know, I couldn't think of anybody better to help us kick Bear out the door than somebody, you know, of your stature that could, you know, help me bounce him out and make sure that I stayed safe. So I appreciate you being on in order to give him his proper exit. So, bud, we're going to talk about a little bit of hockey. We'll talk some Sabres tonight. There's no doubt about that. We'll talk about some Oilers, some off-season. Maybe we can play GM and try to fix our respective teams. How's that sound?
Sounds great, man. I'm on board and ready for anything.
You get a chance to catch the Stanley Cup Finals, I assume. What did you think of the Lightning and the Avalanche?
It was good. I didn't catch all of it, but it was, from what I caught, it was good. You know, at that point, I didn't really care who won. I just wanted to see hockey and, you know, Game 7, hopefully, and just a good tight series, right? So the officiating was hit or miss, but you can say that about almost every series and every game too, right? So, but at the end of the day, it brought excitement. It was close, and it was good to see. You know, at least Tampa got dethroned, and we have a new champion now, and we'll see how long Colorado can hang on to that now.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Hey, I wonder if that's a one and done or whether they can build some sort of dynasty and work towards it. You know, I like Tampa when they first started this run, and maybe it was the Yzerman factor or something there. I liked the Tampa Bay Lightning, but for whatever reason, they went from face to heel pretty quickly in the NHL, didn't they, right? Going against their cap and trying to circumvent, and Kucherov making T-shirts, and all of a sudden the world hated the Tampa Bay Lightning. So, you know, I thought a lot of it was funny and, you know, good for them. That's definitely a dynasty in my eyes. But yeah, it's, you know, in one sense, good to see a new champion and somebody else on the throne. But on the other sense, I don't love that it's the, you know, team that we're going to probably be matching up with as the Oilers in the playoffs for the next few years. Whether we're lucky enough to keep getting to the Western Conference Final to see it, I guess we'll see. What did you think of the Oilers playoff run?
It was, you know, I will admit they went further than I thought. Like from the start, I thought, you know, they would have a tougher time than what they did with Calgary, you know, but they seemed to play them really well. And Markstrom didn't really show up the way he usually does, but you know, they got it through, and I'm not going to lie, they surprised me in my brackets and my little predictions. I thought they're going to lose in the second round. So good on Oilers fans, good on the Oilers. They made it to the Western Conference, and you know, you can't go wrong with that. Like if you would have asked at the start of the season, hey, you know, Western Conference Finals, I'm sure you'd be happy with that, right?
There's no doubt about it. Well, I mean, we all planned the parade once we were, you know, 17-3 to start the season or whatever it was.
Yeah. Sorry
Until
to
the roller
I think that
coaster
battle of
started.
Alberta.
Yeah. But that playoffs was, a little bit of a tale of two series as well. We had this up and down season where the roller coaster went, where we were in, seemed like we couldn't be beat, to seemed like we couldn't win a game, and that's almost what happened again in the playoffs. It kind of, represented itself where, I don't know anybody that picked the Oilers in 5 over the Flames after the season they had. So that's a massive win, especially when you're doing it with Darnell Nurse and a dislocated hip flexor and Draisaitl on 1 foot, even though the Flames say they got beat by one guy. We've still all in Edmonton not figured out which one guy that is that beat the Flames, other than maybe it was Markstrom. And I didn't bring you on here to argue, but I'd say that perhaps maybe Markstrom did show exactly how he was expected to play, because he's never good against the Oilers. He's had a poor record against them, in his entire history. I think even going back to Vancouver. So maybe he felt the pressure of not choosing the Oilers. What do you think?
No, you know what? You got me there. That is pretty true, right? They've handled them pretty well, and maybe it is a little karma for not choosing the Oilers back then. And yeah, you know what? That is typical Markstrom when it comes to the Oilers kind of thing, I guess, right? So
yeah. So, but then again, the tale of two series in the playoffs, straight to getting swept by the Avs. And, I guess we'll give Sutter some credit. I don't know if you remember his comment before the series or before the playoffs, where he said playing the Avalanche would be a waste of 8 days. Well, that came true for the Oilers, because it was. But I think what the Avalanche did after walking over the Oilers was prove that, this is their league now. It was pretty evident to me in that Stanley Cup Finals that they were just a better team than Tampa. Both teams were incredibly banged up. We talk about losing Nurse and Draisaitl. Well, they didn't have Kadri, and they still did just fine. So, I think, and he did come back to save the day and tell Toronto to suck it, which was pretty funny. So yeah, I do think it was a win for the Oilers to get as far as they did. Definitely a surprise. What do you think? And you went to a couple games, if I'm not mistaken. What do you think our downfall was at the end of all of this? Like, where did the weaknesses lie within the Oilers? Like, what do you think our improvements need to be in order to keep getting back to that and playing Colorado in the playoffs?
yeah, no, I was lucky to go to 3 playoff games this year, and just the atmosphere in general. Like wherever I live, I would just try to go to a playoff game, right? Because the playoffs are just an amazing atmosphere, right?
Yeah.
So, but as for the downfall, I hate to, you got to look at the crease in a way. Mike Smith did step up some games, but at the same time too, there's other games where he didn't, and it was just kind of too inconsistent, and you just weren't sure what kind of goaltender you were going to see in the crease, right? So he was there at times, but at the end of the day, it was just also inconsistent. And when you look at the Final Four teams or the contender teams, they usually have a steady, reliable goaltender, or else in the Avalanche case, they have just such an elite blue line, right? So I feel like the Oilers were just not as well balanced positionally compared to Colorado. And Colorado just had the forward depth, they had the blue line, and even though Kemper was gone for a little bit, I feel like Frank Coors, he's not, he's one of the best backups around, kind of thing, right? So he's no slouch either, right? So I just feel like they were just really outmatched, and you got to just build that balance throughout their entire lineup, which hopefully they can fix this summer, right?
Yeah, pretty tough to disagree that starts from the back end. Smith be Smithin', I think, is what you just said, right? Like he's big save Dave when he needs it, but often when you needed the big goal or the timing, and you wouldn't get it, right? I mean, we lost game 1 in every series, and Smith had a pretty poor game 1 in every series. So, he's starting every series in a hole, and yeah, you said it right, man. He wasn't terrible. He wasn't terrible versus the Jets when we got swept the year before either. But he's not clearly the goalie that's going to be getting us that dented Stanley Cup chalice. So thanks, Colorado. I did learn that they put a new base on the Stanley Cup every year, so it's only dented for a summer, I guess. But and from there it moves out. We've got a couple comments. Bryce Workman on the comments says goaltending and defense, and that's pretty hard to disagree with, right? So I always said, and right from the start, that I thought the Oilers had a good first pairing D, and then 2 third pairings, and I think that kind of came to fruition by the end of the playoffs as well. That depth on the back end clearly showed. So I'd like to see them build from the back end out. We're going to need a little bit of help on the wings again to fill out some depth, especially if we all expect Cassian not to be back. Fogle might be traded out. There's, a lot of rumors around JP not being back. So we have to qualify Yamo and probably pick up a couple of wingers, or, give some guys some promotions, whether it's Holloway or something. As you look at the Oilers as a team moving into the off season, what do you see them doing? Do you have any idea, if Jeff put his GM hat on, what would you look for?
So that's a tough one. I hate trying to say like, oh, I know the best or I could do better than Holland, because, they're in that position for a reason. And, as much I'll admit, I'm not the biggest Holland fan. He's got to where he is for a reason too, right? So I just feel like he has a lot on his plate, and it's like a lot to do in just one off season. So can he pull it off? I'm a little skeptical in a way, but we'll have to see, right? Like, are they going to be able to keep Kane? That how much is he going to ask for? What happens with the San Jose settlement and everything? All that's going to come into play of everything, right? And if you don't mind, I was going to pose a question to you about Tyson Berry, because Berry's rumored to potentially leave, right?
Yeah.
Now, if he does, I've been talking back and forth with people on this. Do you think they replace him with another right-handed D, or do you think they just run with two righties and CC and Bouchard, and then just keep somebody on their off side of the ice, like a Kulak if they bring him back? Or do you think Broberg can play the right side permanently? Like, is it a safe, ideal thing to run with two righties, or should they kind of replace Berry if they do get rid of him?
I honestly, I'm in the camp. I know there's a lot of people that think we need to ship Berry out and save that cap space, and part of that is we've got Bouchard in the waiting, and if he's the quarterback power play or power play quarterback replacement, so be it. And I'm in the camp. I want to see Bouchard power play that quarterback that power play. But I don't love Darnell Nurse on the power play. So to me, we still need somebody else to be able to play that power play position, as well as, like, he's still a right-handed defenseman, and those are unicorns in the NHL. Yeah. And you look at guys that produce offensively at the same offensive rate as Tyson Berry in the NHL, and they all make $9 million plus. Mm-hmm. So, we've got this defenseman, this right-handed defenseman that's got experience. He showed in the playoffs he can be a second pairing defenseman at times. He's, been able to spot duty on the first pairing. I don't really want to see Tyson Berry go. I really do think, and to your point, you're absolutely right. I think if we trade him, we got to bring another warm body back. So now that's whether to fill the forward positions and, like you had suggested, potentially a Berry for Victor Olofsson swap, which was put on the shelf for a second, because I'll talk to you about what I dug up today on that. But I think that. Well, maybe let's get into that. I texted into Struddy and Gregor today, because I know that you'd put a few suggestions out there, and I know you weren't in love with that one as much. But, Struddy kept saying today on 1260 that we can't just do this for a draft pick, right? Like, we've got to bring another warm body back in. We're not really in a position in a team where you can get rid of somebody the quality of Tyson Berry and get better just by bringing in a draft pick. So I agree. You're either bringing in a warm body, or you're using that to leverage helping the goaltending position, which is great. But I also think we have Jesse Puljujarvi and Jesse Puljujarvi and a first round pick to be able to leverage to help in the goaltending, and maybe get a trade that way if we don't sign somebody in free agency. So I don't know. Any thoughts on that?
I do agree with you in the sense that Berry, I don't think, has to be shipped out. Like, they could save cash in other ways, like Kassian and Fogle, like you mentioned, right? And right-handed defensemen, they are unicorns, and there's something you should kind of hang on to, right? So as a whole, it's tough to call, because, the goaltending route, I feel like the free agent list is kind of iffy in a way. Like, I don't think Fleury in Edmonton is ever going to happen, no matter how many fans want it to.
No, it's not.
And you look at other people like Jack Campbell, I feel like he might be asking for too much or too long, in the sense, like his contract or his expectations might be a little out price range kind of thing, right? Mm-hmm. So, and then there's Ville Husso as well, and he's got that short, sample size to work from. Like, he only played 40 games this year and only 67 career games. So do you want to so do you want to take a chance on that? So there's a few other RFA options as well, maybe. Like, there's been Georgiev out of New York. A lot of people but he's on his way out, right? So it's another question mark, right? Like I feel like no matter who you try to bring in, it's going to be a risk. So they are stuck. You can see that they are stuck with just what's available, And I don't know what Rudy's going to take. I personally don't want to be in Holland's position, I guess, because I feel like no matter what he does, there's going to be some kind of, it's Edmonton, right? There's going to be some kind of uproar. There's going to be some kind of, oh, he should have done this, or why didn't he do this instead, kind of thing, right? So
of course.
So another question too, sorry to switch it up on you, is how do you think Dylan Holloway is ready? Do you think he starts the year with Edmonton? Do you think he goes back into Bakersfield as all, or is he done in the AHL for Holloway?
Yeah, I think he's ready. I think he's still going to be that type of rookie that'll make mistakes. I don't think he's going to come in seamlessly, to be honest. Maybe he starts the year in the AHL. I can see something like that happening where, he's got 20 games to prove it. And if he can be a point per game player in those 20 games, then maybe get his chance. I do see him playing the majority of the games in the NHL. Here's what worries me, and I appreciate that question, is the fact that look at people who win the Stanley Cup. Do you see rookies on their third and fourth line? Right? You don't look at Colorado, Cogliano and, like solid veterans. You look at the Corey Perrys and the Pat Maroons and the Barclay Goudreaus and the, Brendan Hagels and the guys that are playing, and I guess Hagel's relatively young still, but
offhand, I'm not sure how much did Newhook play with Colorado though in the playoffs. So I wasn't sure how much Newhook, but he's still relatively young. I wasn't sure how much he played though, but
yeah, not much. And it's to me like I don't think we can expect to, like, now after those results from the Oilers, you got to think that this fan base thinks Western Conference at minimum is a win next year, right? We've got now it's Western Conference or bust, kind of, right?
That's your bar now, unfortunately, whether good or bad. That's got to be their bar, right? You know what I mean? Like, they've made it now, and you can kind of just see how the rest of the conference is shaping up. LA is doing great work, but at the same time, like, this has got to be the Oilers' bar. You can't kind of, just make the playoffs now. You're at the position where, the conference finals is expected. You know what I mean? And then I don't know about next year. It depends what kind of moves they make, right? Let's see what kind of roster they go into the season with. But should they be talking about heading to the finals and already beating Colorado? Or is that kind of like a next year thing? Or we'll have to see still, right?
It's got to be your goal.
Their bar's got to be raised.
That's right. So you got to go for the bar, go after it. And I think, like with players, if you're already going to have expectations for, I call Broberg Broberry, because that's what the Cult of Hockey does, and they say that's how his name's pronounced. And then Woodcroft in his final interviews called him Philip Broberry. So I have that programmed in my brain now. But if the Oilers expect to be playing Holloway, Broberry, still a relatively young defenseman in Bouchard, a rookie goalie in Skinner, and also, trying to promote either DeHarnay or Niemelainen or one of these other guys from the minors to fill a spot, I just don't think you can have 4 rookies on your team and expect to, like we said, move past the bar. So and for that reason is why I think maybe Holloway's stays in the A to start, just to be able to either really make sure he's ready or, get his cup of coffee as needed. But in order for us to get that Stanley Cup, I really believe we need to fill out our lineup with some solid veterans. And to your earlier point, I'm not the hugest Holland fan either. I don't think he's done amazing work since the Cap era started. And even before then, like, one of my best friends is a diehard Wings fan, Willie, and he always thought that Jim Nill did a lot for Ken Holland when they were in as an assistant GM in Detroit. And you can see what Jim Nill has done with Dallas, and it's pretty impressive, to be honest, based on what he picked up. So I would have to believe that Jim Nill was a massive influence for Holland there even back then. So it doesn't make him a bad GM, but Michael and I brought this up last time, and to your point of what you said earlier, was that Ken Holland has to be creative. He has to be creative. And as much as, Michael took his ball and went home tonight, I'll give him credit for saying that, he's probably right in that aspect. I think that I got sidetracked with Michael crying and quitting the show. Sorry, jeez.
Okay, just Holland, I feel like, hasn't shown he can be creative, really. You know what I mean?
That's what Michael said ultimately, right? So whether it's with the Kane thing, whether it's with one of the other teams. Like, I don't think these are just straight buyouts. And I don't know if you saw, it was rumored and Drager came out and said that looks like Mike Smith will go on LTIR next year, which is what everybody really expected, right? We already got Clefbaum stashed there, so it really doesn't hurt us that much more to have Smith there too. So that opens up that goaltending slot, which is nice because I do think a lot of people thought that maybe we'd go with 3 goalies to start the year or something.
You have a goaltender preference, sorry?
So what's that again?
Do you have a goaltender preference for anybody out there, like RFA or just UFA, or you're leaning towards anybody at all?
Well, look, I'll say it to you like this. I was, my friend Petey, that's a diehard Sabres fan. I was chatting with him a little bit today, and he says to me, does re-signing Craig Anderson point to the Sabres not going after another decent goalie, therefore the time isn't now? And I think so, Petey. And the time isn't now really for the Oilers either. Like, look at what we're looking at for options. Like Ville Husso and like might want $5 million a year. Like, are we going to give him what we did with Koskinen? Are we just going to sign him to 4 by 4.5 and cross our fingers that he's had enough of a sample size that can win us a cup? I don't know. I don't like that. Ultimately, in a dream scenario, you'd like Fleury here. He's not coming. No. You'd like to have even maybe a Varlamov. He's said he's not coming. I can see maybe, Gibson has no movement. He's not coming to a Canadian team.
Yeah, especially, there's a lot of guys with the no movement clause like Varlamov and Gibson, and I don't think the Oilers are really coming off those lists yet, really. You know what I mean?
They're not. A
lot of just chaos, a lot of just pressure, animosity going on in the city with the media, the fans, and a lot of guys probably just want to stay away from that kind of shit, right? So
absolutely.
There's a lot of Hellebuck rumors as well. Do you think they got a chance at him though?
As much of a chance as anyone else if they wanted. I think the thing about Hellebuck is you just have to give up so much to get him that is it now worth it, right? And if that's just draft picks and a first and Borgo and Broberg or something, like maybe, but man, that's steep. And I guess you've got your goalie then, and he's a ex-Vezina winner, and I don't know though, right? You've got to give up a lot of assets, and we're already trying to stay a competitive team. So if it's all draft picks, maybe. I'm not sure Winnipeg's going to be ready to do that. The media here likes to prep us for things that are going to happen, and where there's smoke, there's fire, and there's a lot of talk of Jack Campbell. Sure, maybe. I don't really want a goalie nicknamed Soup, to be honest. But, if he's not good enough for the Leafs, why is he good enough for us? That's kind of the way I look at it, right? Like, he might be a good dressing room guy, and he might be a solid goalie, and I know he fought injury and COVID last year, and maybe our professional scouts see something else, and that's fine. I don't know that. Maybe Talbot. I don't know if Talbot has any no movement. I don't think he does, but
I just remember he's got 1 year left, and but Minnesota's going to be looking for somebody else. Like, there's rumors they're going to try to bring Fleury back, but who knows what happens there. But even with Talbot, what are you sending them? You know what I mean? And then if they trade Talbot to Edmonton, it's not like they have a goalie they can send back. So then Minnesota's going to be in the hunt for 2 goalies there too, right? So
I think the only way that happens is if Fleury resigns, and so Fleury kind of almost becomes, maybe not for the Oilers so much, but like he becomes that first domino for the goalies a little bit, because I think once he goes, that'll affect other teams' decisions, which will then affect the Oilers. Not that it will affect the Oilers directly, but I see a tremendous fit for Fleury, and if he does want to move, like, look, he's made a pile of money. Yeah. If he's gonna play another year or two, it's, in my opinion, knowing the Marc-Andre Fleury, or the Flower we all think we know, he wants to win. And so if he's going to do that, it's got to be with one of these Final 4 or Final 6 teams. And to me, with what's going on in Colorado, that's the perfect fit. Scary as that is as an Oilers fan, the Avs have, I think, what did I hear, like 10 RFAs coming up the year after next, plus McKinnon. So Fleury's almost the perfect patch for them, right? Like they've already proven they like Frankie between the pipes. So if they keep Frankie and they bring in Fleury, he can sign that 1 year deal that Maybe
Really
it's
cheap,
only
right?
for a couple $1,000,000 just to win the cup and keep that team competitive or whatever. Or maybe he
Yeah.
wants 4 or 5, but that's fine. Maybe it's just a 1 year deal, and then they've still got that space to sign their 10 RFAs the next year. It'd be a really efficient use of cap space for Colorado, and then, maybe as just a bridge for Frankie, who can be their goalie of the future. And that's what I could see. But then I talk about that domino. Now Kemper shakes loose.
Hmm.
So, maybe that now becomes a realistic target for the Oilers. And again, I think Kemper's going to want to win, but he probably just priced himself out of Colorado.
Oh, probably. Yeah. I think you and I were just talking about that earlier today on Twitter, how
Yeah.
he's got his ring now. So it's probably at his age and stage of his career, like, let's get the payday, right? And,
Yeah.
how much can Oilers or anybody really, like, what are they going to pay Kemper at this point, right? So, like
Yeah.
you just said, he probably priced himself out a little bit, and I wonder what he comes in at, right? So,
And you got to think it's that 4 or 5 million range for sure. I mean,
well, I know he's coming off 4.5 right now. So from 4.5, he's probably going to want some kind of raise.
five and a
So,
half, 6, are we
yeah.
looking at? Like, that's starting to get expensive, right? And I know when he was in Arizona, they talked, oh, maybe he'd go to Team Canada in the Olympics. And, if Kemper's one of the top 3 to 5 goalies in Canada, that's pretty impressive. Um, he's a bit of a band-aid, but at the end of the day, he's put together a few seasons where he's scored, or where he's played, 40, 50, 60 games, and really that's what we need out of him. So, um, Black Mazakari on the comments says, "Man, I sure hope the Avs don't get any nice discount contracts." Well, me too, dude. Me too.
Yeah.
But that's what happens when you win a Stanley Cup and you have an attractive city and an attractive team and an attractive market, and you're in a fun state, and like, look what's happened to Tampa. Everybody's wanted to go to Tampa. It's
Yeah.
not gonna. It's the same thing in Colorado. So yeah, I think that makes the only realistic targets in goal really kind of being, I don't know. It's hard to say, man. To Petey's point, I just don't think this is the year, and unfortunately, we need one now. So, the Oilers' dream would somehow to be pulling a Carter Hart out of a rebuilding Philadelphia, but like, what's the price on that? Probably the same as a Hellebuck or more expensive. So that doesn't really make sense either. So, I think we just kind of got to catch lightning in a bottle, man. Holtby, I don't know. I don't know. I I
Yeah.
think
I don't know. The
I
only thing
think
I
it
got
might
to
be Campbell. I really do.
Yeah, I worry about his price tag though, because he might come in around like the 5 million mark as
Ugh.
well.
Wow,
Yeah.
then that won't be. I
Well, I
mean,
know that's
if
just what I've been hearing too, because his name's floating around the Buffalo area as well, and like the Sabres might be interested in him as well, right? So Campbell, I feel like I just worry about his price tag. A lot of those guys like Kemper as well, and the only reason why, I don't mind Husso if you can get him in at a like cheaper range, like around the 4 million. But if he's a little higher, that may be tough too. But like, might be swerving the topic a bit. But like, how much do you have faith in Skinner? Because I
swerve.
gotta, I'm a huge Stuart Skinner fan, but I'll admit, like, he's still unproven. And I feel like the Oilers kind of made a mistake by not giving him more games this past season when they had the opportunity. So you're still having those question marks with Skinner now. So
Yeah,
if they would have used him a lot more, there wouldn't be as many question marks, because now you sit there and think, well, how many games is Skinner going to get? Is the new goalie going to be the full-fledged like number one, or is it going to be kind of a splitting tandem kind of thing where you want to get Skinner lots of games, right? So
yeah. I've been back and forth. I had a lot of family that saw Skinner play. In fact, that my friend Willie that I referenced earlier, the Red Wing fan, he's in Regina and has season tickets to the Pats, so he got to watch Skinner play quite a bit there. And my dad is in Kelowna and a season ticket holder for the Rockets, so he got to see a lot of Skinner there. And they both said the same thing to me: is they didn't love the Oilers draft pick of him because he's one of those goalies that once you get him moving side to side, he was, you know, maybe one of those goalies in junior that was so big and like physically big that he was just gonna be a little bit better than everybody else. He played on, he didn't have great stats in the dub until he got to play on an all-star team and go to the Memorial Cup, and then he didn't have great stats entering the ECHL and the AHL. That said, he's still only 23 or 24 years old now, and he
yeah,
just dominated the AHL.
yeah,
So maybe did he? I don't know. Maybe I don't watch him down there enough to know, but maybe he turned a leaf. Maybe he's turned the page and he's getting to be where that's, if you look at the trajectory of some of these other guys like Ottinger or, going even all the way back to Tuukka Rask, right? Like those are guys that dominated the AHL and then came up and dominated the NHL. So I don't know. Show me, Skinner. Show me. I don't know, man. I hope so.
It is a kind of a wild card in a way, and like what's he going to be like, right? But I feel like they have him there, and because of his contract, he's not able to get sent down anymore, right? So he's going to be here. Just how much they use him now is a huge question mark too, right? So I am a fan of the kid, but I'll admit like he's unproven, and we still got to see like what's there, right? So I hope for the best, but it's still kind of fingers crossed in a way, and like let's hope. But
yeah,
in the Oilers' position, when we talked earlier, where the bars at the conference finals, there can't be too much hope happening, kind of thing, right? So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a little late for hope. We kind of got to know, right? And Black Mazakarian again, like we probably should have drafted more goalies, and I kind of agree. We've had our chance. Instead of Bourgault, we could have drafted the big Swede, and we didn't. And there's opportunity, like frickin' Shesterkin was what, a 4th round pick or a 3rd round pick or a 5th round pick. Like, you gotta get lucky sometimes, but there's the Cam Wards that won Stanley Cups as rookies, and there's the Patrick Waugh. But I've said this many times, you go back 25, 26 years of Stanley Cup winners, and the only ones that weren't a homegrown goalie were, I think, Antti Niemi and Patrick Waugh with Colorado. So add Kemper to that list, right? Now we've got 3 times in the last 26 years. And if it's a trend, it's a trend. It favors the Oilers for sure if that's the case, because we obviously are going to have to rely on a goalie we bring in unless Skinner's the next Cam Ward, right? And if he is, and he goes in and he plays 60, 70 games and he's the Binnington, he's the, like, who knows? Like, goalies are voodoo, right? So maybe he's that guy and he's making the transition, or maybe he isn't. But you're right. I think the Oilers made a mistake in not finding out. Something you said earlier is interesting to me, and I'm going to use it as a bit of a transition. And you said that the Sabres showed some interest in Soup. That scares me a little bit, to be honest, because if that's like one of the actual realistic targets for the Oilers, it will come down to money, and we can't afford to pay him, 3x4 or anything like that, I don't think. But boy, the Sabres sure could.
Yeah, like they got the cap space right now, and I feel like they can take that and use it to their advantage and outbid teams like the Oilers and kind of pay guys a little more, kind of thing, right? I'm a little on the fence with Campbell. I'm a little on the fence with Campbell, I'll admit, but like he would be a step up and an improvement from what they've had the last couple of years for sure. And after the Craig Anderson signing today, I really hope that's, they're not done. They're not done. And Adams even said today in an interview that they're not done. They're going to be bringing somebody else in. And they already have Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. And thank you. And, yeah. And Luukkonen's a guy where he's, he was the 2019 OHL goalie of the year. And I feel like in the AHL so far, he's been a little inconsistent. The injuries have riddled him and he just really hasn't found his groove in the AHL yet. So I feel like the Sabres are kind of playing the conservative route with Luukkonen. And, he, unlike Skinner, Luukkonen can still pass through waivers. So they can still send Luukkonen down to the minors. And I think that's kind of the plan now. So I feel like Anderson's hopefully going to be the backup, and they're still going to bring somebody else in. As for who, I have no idea. You know what I mean? Like they can outbid people like Campbell and try to lure him in. But what's it called? Husso's been another name as well. And I wouldn't mind Husso, give him a chance, because it's a different scenario over in Buffalo than it is at Edmonton.
Big time. Right? Yeah. You can rely on Hope a little more than we can right now.
Yeah, exactly. Another name that I kind of, would Holtby be interested in Buffalo? I don't know, but it's a situation where like, hey, buddy, we can give you a starting position out here, kind of thing, right? And maybe pay him a little more. But like with Holtby and Anderson, you can have 2 veterans that'll be kind of there to help out Luukkonen. Because in a perfect world, I feel like the next goalie they bring in can be there for a couple of years, where they're still easing Luukkonen into things, so he's not going to be tossed into the deep end too soon.
What was your initial thoughts on the Ben Bishop trade?
I feel like they were going to do something to hit the cap floor. You know what I mean? So we kind of thought something was going to happen, right? And
I think it was just re-sign Hinostroza and re-sign Victor Olofsson, and then go sign a goalie for $4 million a year. Like, you're going to be pretty close to the cap floor anyways. I don't get, like, is it just an insurance policy to make sure they hit the cap floor? Because what's that 7th round pick going to get you? It was just a weird trade for me.
Yeah, no, I do agree. And I was expecting like a few rounds a little higher, like maybe like a
Yeah.
fourth or fifth, right? But like a seventh is a little underwhelming. And I should know this offhand, but I think there's still a good like 11 million from the floor, and they still got to sign Olofsson. He's an RFA.
I think they're
And
13 from the floor.
yeah, and but Olofsson, like just guessing, he'll come around like what 4.5 million
Four,
maybe.
yeah, five, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, but they, even after signing Olofsson, they're still going to be away from the floor. So you're going to have to toss money out to a goalie, and they still need a right-handed defenseman. And there's been lots of rumors out of Buffalo that they may go after PK Subban too. So
Right.
yeah, so I don't know how much they're going to give Subban there, but he'll cost money. Like they maybe like you just said, the Bishop thing was probably something just as an insurance, like just to make sure they get to the floor. There's no doubts kind of thing about it. But a seventh rounder is almost like, oh, okay, thanks. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
maybe it could have been like a fifth or something, but it is what it is. Like we knew they were going to take a contract on somewhere to kind of help with the floor circumstances, right? But
Do you think the seventh, like, do you think the draft pick got degraded because of the fact that how much little was owed to the player versus his cap hit?
yeah,
Because I
no,
think
that
didn't he's only owed $1 million or $1.5 million or something like that, even though the cap hit was high. What was Bishop's cap hit? Like 4.5 or 5 or 5.5
yeah,
or
around
something.
those. So I don't know
4.9,
offhand, but
4.9. I don't know. So you guys, you get a 4.9 cap hit, but as the owner, you only have to pay $1 million of that. Which leads me to something I want to run by you. I know you've thrown a few trade scenarios out there for the Oilers and the Sabres, and I did steal this a little bit. I won't give myself too much credit, but I absolutely love the flippin' idea. How's this? And bear with me. I don't want you to hang up. I don't want you to laugh in my face. All right, you got to hear me out, Jeff. You hear me
okay.
out till the end. You're going to hear my first two words, and you're going to turn cold inside. And that's okay. That's okay. Hear me out. All right, brother? Duncan Keith to the Sabres. You buy him out. You get $5 million against your floor. And you only have to pay him $500,000 over the next 2 years. For a total of $1 million. So your owner only has to pay out $500,000 this year and $500,000 next year, but he gets $5 million or 4.9 against the cap this year, which we just talked about you guys needing. In exchange, we give you a second or third round pick in the next year's draft, and then we re-sign Duncan Keith for $1 million. Keith ends up getting 2.5 or $2 million instead of the 1.5 he'd get for just playing it out. You guys get to the cap floor, you get a draft pick, and we get Duncan Keith at $1 million, save a couple, and potentially get Kulak and Keith for the price of Keith's cap hit. Sabres GM, what do you think?
You're done. So altogether it was Keith and a second we're going with.
Yeah, well, I'll start low. Keith and a third. You guys buy him with the intention that you guys buy him out, and we re-sign, the Oilers re-sign Keith at $1 million a year.
If we could bump that up to a second, like if I'm going to put my GM hat on, I would take a second only because 2023 is once again supposed to be a very deep draft.
Right.
And the Sabres already have 3 second-round picks. So if we can add on a 4th second-round pick for 2023, I could consider it because, we're not taking Keith on. It's just the money part of it, right? And just to hit the cap floor. So I would say yes, if we can make it a 2023 second rounder, because you know what, let's add on those second round picks for next year. Maybe we can use them in another deal, or else we could just keep all 4 seconds next year and just build in the draft like they've been doing, kind of thing. So, what, I would potentially consider that. Yeah. So that's not bad. That's not bad, because I understand you guys got to figure something out with Keith, and Sabres still have to hit the floor. And if you're going to give up a 23 second, then yeah, you know what, let's do it. And it's funny because that would be 3 years in a row that the Oilers don't use a second.
Yeah.
But in your situation, I guess it's win now mode for you guys, right? So a lot of those 100%. Picks, you gotta do what you gotta do. So you know what, I'll agree to this offer. I don't know how many of the Buffalo fans would be agreeing with me, but like I said, I'm looking at the second round pick and the fact that, hey, we need the cap floor. So I'll say, yeah, that's not bad, man. I'll like it.
All right. Well, then we've got a little bit of, insurance on the back end for the same amount of cap, and I like that. So we're gonna do it. Black Mazzacari's back in on the comments and says Dash for GM. So I'm gonna nominate Black Mazzacari for Oilers Fan of the Year. Thanks, buddy. Let's do a little bit of rapid fire on the Sabres because there's a lot I want to ask you, but I don't want to take up too much time. So I'm kind of curious what you think about some of this stuff. And my friend Petey kind of gave us a little bit of answers as well. So on some of them, I might read his as well and give you what his thoughts are because I think some of it's funny. But Petey wanted me to ask you this: did the Sabres trade 1 or 3 of their first round picks to move up in the draft?
I would say potentially because they have 28th overall. They have Florida's first pick. I would maybe that one, yes, but the other 2, I would say no. This is a pretty good draft in the 9th overall and 16th overall. You can still get some pretty good picks there. You know what I mean? So I would keep 9th and 16th, but 28th I'd say could be up for grabs in a way. If they can maybe trade it for a player ready to go now, because they really need to find a defenseman or a goalie in a sense. So if they can use that 28th overall pick and use it into some kind of trade to bring in someone now, or also even somehow trade a first and trade that 28th and like something else, like a second or a third rounder to move up in the first round some more, that'd be up for grabs. But I would say maybe just the last of the first round picks they have. Yeah.
I think that I heard somewhere that the top 20 picks in this year's draft, and then there's a drop off, and anybody from 21 to 50 or 60 is pretty much the same. So, with your numbers there, you fall into your second pick at 16, which is perfect. You're still in that top 20. Hey, let's swing some more deals. Why don't you throw that 28th pick over to the Oilers, throw in one of your, thirds or fourth from maybe it's a third from the upcoming year. We'll give you Barry. We get our couple of hot draft picks. We take the 28th overall, the 29th overall. We combine those and go and get Hellebuck. All right, let's do that. Next captain of the Buffalo Sabres. You and I have talked about this before, so I think I know your answer, but we'll lay it out there for the listeners.
I can't remember if we did or not, but
yeah, we did on the last show. I remember. Well, I can remind you if you want, so you don't double back on it. But
I hope I don't double back. But I think I've stayed to the same. I usually don't try to bounce on that, but I'm a huge fan of Kyle Okposo.
Yeah, that's what you said.
Yeah. And the thing with him, though, he's only got 1 year left on his deal. And I feel like they could easily bring him back because right now we still got that $6 million contract from, back when Lucic and all those fun guys signed for $6 million on the same day.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, they could easily bring him back for $2 million after that. And if they keep him, then yeah, give him the C. But if I don't like the one and done kind of things, like if it's just for 1 year, then yeah, what's the point in a sense? Right. But if they extend Kyle Okposo, I'm picking him as a captain, and I'm gonna hopefully he can be the leader for a few years to come if they can bring him back after this 1 year. So, and if I had to pick a second one, I might go with Alex Tuck, probably my second choice. He's got the experience with the Vegas when they went to the finals and stuff like that. And he's a local boy. He's only from a couple hours away from Buffalo. He grew up a Sabres fan. And I feel like that's somebody you can kind of build around and market to, like, hey, this is a guy that's going to stay here. He's from here. You can just, build around Alex Tuck a little bit. So either Kyle Okposo or Alex Tuck there.
Yeah, I like that. I would probably agree with you wholeheartedly in every sense there. I think if Okposo is going to stay around and he still wants to play hockey after this year, then that's the guy. He's absolutely adored in that dressing room. I was listening to a podcast where I heard that in the exit interviews, there was a good 5 or 6 players that completely went right out of their way to let the GM know that Okposo is one of their reasons they're there, and just an absolute gem of a human being. And it was noted that it wasn't like the GM said, "What do you think of Kyle?" Like they just volunteered that information. So yeah, you need a guy like that, right? You need that good, wholesome person that can, lead and show these kids how to be human beings too, right? And he's always had a good work ethic. He's always, come ready to play. He plays a strong game. So tough to argue with you there. Tuck, I'd say, definitely is the heir apparent, if not, and if so, maybe Cousins is captain material. But are any of those options snubbing Rasmus Dahlin?
I would go with Dahlin ahead of Cousins if we had to. just because maybe just the age, and I know they're only like a couple years apart, but still, I think Dahlin is somebody, could be in the conversation after, just ahead of Cousins personally. But, Dylan's no slouch on him. I think he'd probably be an A down the road and be a great leader for this team as well, right? So.
Yeah, for sure. Petey says Captain Tuck, heart and soul player, and he wants to play in Buffalo. All right, Ryan. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, yeah, like I got no problem with Tuck, and I would give it to Tuck right away if Okposo doesn't stay beyond this 1 year.
Ryan Miller gets his jersey retired in Buffalo. Congratulations, Ryan Miller.
Yeah. I can go ranting about numbers for hours, man. I love jersey numbers, and I feel like that's one of the most like overrated topics in the world, though, because like there's really no like blue book, there's no rule book, sorry, and like definition for it, right? And I feel like a lot of people, it comes from the Oilers, I'll give it that, but a lot of Oiler fans want to compare it to the Hall of Fame. Like if he's not in the Hall of Fame, no jersey retirement. But I feel like other organizations will have a different measuring stick kind of thing, right?
For sure.
So I feel like
Wall of Honor or something instead. Right?
Yeah, exactly. So I have no problem with the Miller thing. I know some Sabre fans are debating it, but behind Hasek, he's the most winningest Sabres goalie in history, and I think he was number 2 for American goaltenders as well, right? So he's got the record there. And I don't see any problem at all, too. I don't know if Miller's ever going to be a Hall of Famer, but this is a great way to honor him. Yeah, exactly, right? So it's a good way to still honor him and show, show your appreciation for what he's done for the organization. And it'll be a good night when it happens this season. So good for him.
Yeah, for sure. I think he's, top 3 to 5 in Sabres history in games played as a Sabre, which is pretty incredible. I thought I heard the other day that he wore 11 different jerseys for the Sabres.
Yeah, I remember hearing that.
So, that says something, right? Who's the next? So if that's the case and that the Buffalo moves forward with this as a franchise, who's the next Sabres jersey to go up?
Ooh, that's a good one. Because it'll be a while now, because I can't think of any past players. Maybe if you want to go the route and say Alex McGillney, but like that's more of a Hall of Fame talk. I still don't know why or how Alex McGillney's not in the Hall of Fame.
It won't be long.
Yeah, exactly.
76 goals for the Sabres or whatever the hell he did.
But as for jersey number, that's tough. I think we're gonna look and like could Dahlin step into that, but like I still think he's got a ways to go, of course. But I can't think of anybody right now off the top of my head that'll be next in line. It'll be a good couple of decades probably. You know what I mean? So that's a good question,
sure.
and I can't think of anyone.
Current player, I would agree. That's what I thought too. Maybe the only guy that's got a chance is a Tuck or a Dahlin. But Pete posed the question to Petey, and he said, "How about a Housley or Andachuk?"
Ooh, yeah, no, those are good ones. You know what I mean? But like. Yeah, I would say no personally, just because I don't know. You can't just can them out all the time to everybody in a sense. They did have good tenures there. They had good records, of course. Oh, that's a good one, but I would still probably decline and say no. Sorry.
No problem. All right. So we've talked a little bit about Victor Olofsson. Trade, sign, or move on?
Ooh. I'm on the fence. I don't mind trading him. You know what I mean? I feel like he could bring back some kind of good prize. Like if you want to bolster that right side of the defense or even try to bolster the goaltending situation, I wouldn't mind trading him, but he's somebody where if you keep him, it's not a bad thing either, right? So like I said, $4.5 million should be his range. But they're pretty crowded already. So I feel like if they do trade him, I'm open to it depending on the offer kind of thing, right? So yeah, I'm kind of mixed on the fence when it comes to Olofsson there, and
I'm not sure he's part of the core. He seems like a niche player to me a little bit. Like he's, if you take the baseball analogy, like the 5-tool player, I think maybe Victor Olofsson's a really, really, really good two-tool player. You know what I mean? Like really good at a couple things, but maybe not awesome at everything. And I go back to that potential of Olofsson for Barry. I still think we need to hang on to Barry, but that's a warm body coming in Olofsson. If he's not part of your core, you bring Barry in, he can mentor Powers and Dahlin a little bit, and maybe Olofsson can catch fire beside McDavid or Draisaitl, and that becomes a win-win. I'm just not sure that. I don't know. Olofsson is gonna get it done. Petey says Olofsson's a nice November player. Playoffs are in the spring, not the fall.
Yeah, like that's a good way to put it. Like the two tool, he's not as well-rounded as you would hope for, kind of thing. And he's good in the power play. And probably if you get him with, like you said, a McDavid or Leon, he'd be really deadly in the power play. But I agree with you. I don't think he's really part of the core. Like you look at guys like Cousins or Tage Thompson there and stuff like that, and Alex Tuck, like those are probably the core forwards in a sense. And they still have a few young up-and-comers too, like Jack Quinn should be an NHL player this coming season. And even JJ Peterka there. I'm really high on JJ Peterka, but I'm not sure what kind of ceiling he will have as well.
Yeah, Petey said JJ Quinn and Krebs could be the depth scoring for lines needed to turn a team around if they're consistent. Yeah. Same question. Keep him, trade him, or let him go. Casey Middlestat.
Oh, I've been trying to trade him all last few months. He's been my chip, I guess, to trade for Puljujarvi, actually, because I feel like both Middlestat and Puljujarvi, they're born in 1998, and I feel like they're both that can really use the change of scenery in a sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't mind, like, I'm not trying to say I'm down in Middlestat, but like he's been underwhelming for sure so far. He had a good season last year, and I feel like he's been good under Coach Granato so far. But at the same time, I don't think he's the top 10 draft pick that everybody kind of hoped we were initially getting, kind of thing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So for Middlestat, I would say trade him, and like I said, my offer would be to Edmonton for Puljujarvi, and Sabres might have to add a little bit on top of that, but I don't think they'd have to add too much as well. But Middlestat, he's okay, but like, once again, like he's not the player I feel like we were hoping to initially get, right? So he can play left wing, he can play center, he can play in your second or third line in a sense, but at the same time, he's somebody I would kind of look towards shipping out if I had the opportunity.
Yeah, you just described a Puljujarvi to a T. I mean, that's exactly how Oilers fans would feel about him. I'd think there's probably as many that think we hold on and see if he becomes that Nishushkin type player, or, just as many that want to see him go so that we can move on. I think the only flaw I see in your plan, and I guess maybe that's how it's handled on the Sabres end once it happens, but I think one of the reasons Yessa doesn't want to play in Edmonton anymore is because he sees himself as a top 6 player. And I think really where he'd slot in on Buffalo would still likely be in that third line role. So, is he going to be happy in that spot, or is he going to, be content with that's your place in the NHL life now? Or, is he going to be crying to his agent in Buffalo like he does in Edmonton?
In a way, and like I've penciled it out with Puljujarvi kind of in Buffalo in a sense, and Alex Tuck's the number 1 right winger, and I feel like that's pretty set in stone. And as for the number 2, it still could be up in the air in a bit. Like I feel like Jack Quinn could be that number 2 right winger, but at the same time, he's only played 2 NHL games, and he's going to be a full-fledged rookie coming into this year. So how much do we trust or have faith in Jack Quinn being in the top 6 already? So I feel like if we have Puljujarvi there, Puljujarvi and Jack Quinn could almost be interchangeable for lines 2 and line 3. And if Jack Quinn's getting overwhelmed as a rookie and can't take on those minutes, that's where Puljujarvi kind of comes in as line 2. And then when Jack Quinn gets more comfortable, that's when Jack Quinn and Puljujarvi could almost flip-flop in line 2 and line 3.
Yeah, like the Oilers deployed JP and Yamo.
in a sense, yes. And I can see how JP might get a little frustrated from that. But at the same time, I feel like good teams out there, they have the depth, you know what I mean? And I feel like that just shows your forward depth. If you have either Jack Quinn or Puljujarvi in your second or third, or in your guys' cases, flip it between Yamamoto and Puljujarvi, like you said, right? So
yeah, for sure. Petey says if Casey Middlestat has lots to prove in his opinion. He said I'd let him prove it this year and or next, and then use the RFA leverage to make him earn a bigger deal if possible, which I think that's fair too. You've got some time to let him simmer a little bit, right? So
yeah, and that's a fair assessment as well. And I got no issues with that. I think he's only like $2.5 million. I just can't remember if he's got 1 or 2 years left, but I know he's got $2.5 million. And like you did draft a guy, you should kind of show some investment at the same time. So, he's still young, something can happen. And at the same time, he's, as much as he's still young, he's still kind of older-ish compared to the rest of the roster. He can still kind of grow with the team and also be kind of blended in with that young group too. So, it isn't a bad idea. I just feel like if we do want to bring somebody in, like a Puljujarvi or another forward out there, just Puljujarvi he's available from the sounds of things, right? I just feel like Middlestat would be the one you would offer up, I guess. because the forwards are pretty full. You know what I mean? And if you want to bring somebody else in, somebody's got to kind of go to make room in a sense too.
Yeah, I would agree. Okay, I'm going to double back on a bunch of comments. We'll see kind of where they fit past our conversation. Howdy, fellas. This is from Rudistic the Guardian. Rudistic the Guardian. Hello, fellas. Holloway stays in the NHL for sure. Book it. Black Mazakari says, Broberry. Black Mazakari, could Husso come up in a cheap, 1 year show me deal? Maybe. I don't think that's what he's looking for at this point in time in his career, though. He says it's risky for a cup contender, to have two rookie goalies almost, and I couldn't agree more. You brought up the sample size there, right? So, we're coming up, I think, pretty close to an hour or just past the hour mark. I don't want to go on too much longer. I really appreciate your time in this chat. Anything else you want to touch on, hockey-wise or otherwise, and that we can chat back and forth before I give you the last word?
I'm open to anything. We haven't really touched on the draft too much. The draft.
I thought it's right in front of me. I thought about that. We did whether the Buffalo
already,
Sabres would consolidate some picks, but
7 days away next Thursday.
Well, I'm looking forward to getting together with you. We've got a date to go and watch that thing on Thursday.
Yeah, I wasn't sure how much you were, if you were for sure coming out and all that, but it'd be great to finally meet you. We've chatted a few times and stuff, but we haven't actually met in person.
Yeah,
so that'll be
looking forward to it for sure.
But no, I gotta say, the draft sounds like it'll be fun because, looking around the rankings and everybody else, it just seems like it's all over the place. You know what I mean? Like, who's going to go anywhere, kind of thing. Like, I'm a huge fan of Matt Sovey there.
For sure. Yeah, Matt Savoy. Yeah, his brother's here. Yeah.
Savoy, sorry. And I feel like I've seen a lot of Sabre fans kind of thinking and hoping he can fall to number 9. And I'm just not sure if he could fall to 9, but if he does, I would love to see him in Buffalo, right? But I don't think he'll be available, but I would love to see Savoy in Buffalo for sure. Another
really cool.
Yeah, Frank Nazar. I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name, but he's another I've seen. Frank Nazar and what is it, Joachim Kimmel? I'm bad at these pronunciations.
Yeah, I know, me too. Until they get to be mainstream guys, it's hard, right? We Anglophones that will butcher that as much as we can. Like we said, we've been saying Broberg for 2 years, and it's not even close.
Yeah. So is there the Oilers? Do you think they should keep 29 for sure, or what do you think they? That's the highest pick they've had in a long while now, right? And
so ultimately, I think if they draft, I think they'll take a defenseman. I think they kind of need to restock the cupboard. Shipping Caleb Jones out, shipping Ethan Bear out. We're going to promote. We have promoted Bouchard. We're about to promote Broberry. That emptied the cupboards a bit. So I think that we've got a couple coming up, whether Luka Munzenberger and those guys that are, Niemelainen or Deharnay or any of those guys can end up, making it and being providers, then great. Otherwise, I'd say it's a defenseman getting drafted. I don't know who. There's just so many. There's maybe 6 or 7 defensemen ranked in the top 30. So somebody's got to fall to you, right?
Yeah.
But to your point, I think they move the pick. I think this is the year where, like we said, if the top 20 is, a drop off after in quality of draft picks, then, you've got this high of a pick. This is the year. I think you've got to move it. You either do that or you trade down to get a couple of seconds, right? If you can get 2 players in that 20 to 60 range and, flip a coin and one of them turns out, then great. I'd say your chance of getting an early second to turn out in the NHL is probably pretty equivalent to 29th or 30th overall pick in this year's draft. So I do think, I think that Holland not having to trade this first pick was a win. I think it's been in play for a while, and the fact that he didn't, it's a win. But I strongly feel like JP and that first round draft pick will be the leverage to go out and get a goalie. So
for sure.
That's how I see the Oilers draft. I think I'm most intrigued to see how that top 5 to 10 kind of sort its way out. So much smoke around the Habs, maybe potentially not taking Shane Wright. So if they take the Slovak winger instead, I'm not going to try and say his name either. Slogowski. What is Slavoski?
Slavoski, yeah.
He if he ends up going number 1, then I think that's going to cause a little bit of chaos because I don't think New Jersey needs Shane Wright. They've already got a couple of those guys in Hischier and Hughes.
Jack Hughes and Nico, yeah. So That'll
So
be
then
interesting. Like,
does the
sorry, go
number
ahead.
2 pick become in play, right? And oh my God, well, if that's the case, do the Buffalo Sabres or the Arizona Coyotes want to consolidate their 25 picks they have between them in the first 3 rounds and move up, right? So I think there's room for chaos this year, which I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, chaos is always good. You know what I mean? And as you were just saying about New Jersey there, I think the second overall could be in play, especially they seem like they want to, they've been kind of toiling around that top 3, top 5 draft picks for a while after Jack Hughes and Nico kind of thing, right? So maybe they want to speed things up. They got the money now. And I've always been saying for months now, I think Johnny Gaudreau could go to New Jersey, but I don't know if that's going to happen or not. But I feel like just talking fantasy stuff right now, watch them sign Johnny Gaudreau and then trade their second overall pick for Alex DeBrincat. Then they could have Gaudreau, Hughes, and DeBrincat right there just in one swing. But, that's just fantasy talk. You know what I mean?
Of course.
The excitement from the draft is coming up, and it's just going to be awesome to see where it all falls. And as for the Sabres moving up, I would love if they could. There's a couple right-handed defensemen out there, and like Simon Nemec and David Urasek, and I feel like the defense looks great with Dahlin and Power, but I feel like they need that right side as well.
Yeah, for sure.
And Dahlin's been playing on the right side with Power a little bit, but I feel like in a sense you want to build that depth too, and you kind of almost want to keep them separate. You know what I mean? Like you want to. Yeah. It is nice to have Power and Dahlin together, but I would kind of want to keep them separated and have kind of with them with right-handed shots in a sense too.
Yeah, kind of depends where Yoki Haru ends up slotting in, right? I think when you guys traded Nylander for him, you were probably expecting a little more, and he started hot, but I don't know, he had a tough season, so it'd be interesting. Yeah, is he a second pairing defenseman?
Yeah, he's been underwhelming a little bit, especially this past season. You know what I mean? And I would say probably more of a second pair type of guy. Hopefully something's still there, but I don't know how many years we can still kind of hold out and cross the fingers on him type thing, right? So, but bottom line, they gotta fix up the right hand side of the blue line, and if they could move up, I think that'd be great. You know what I mean? They already got some forward prospects as it is, like I said, with Quinn and Peterka, and Krebs is still young, right? So if they can shore up the right side, I think that'd be looking great. They got the goalie prospects with Luukkonen, who is kind of iffy about, but they still got Devin Levi, who's still a couple years.
Yeah, you could send Levi our way in a trade if you want.
But yeah, so like I mean, like they got the pieces there, and if they move up, I think that'd be great. And I hope they move up for a right-handed defenseman if they could. So
yeah, it'd be interesting to see. Like, you got my eye on a few teams, like Arizona. Are they gonna use all those picks in such a shallow draft? Are they gonna? What's Chicago gonna do? Will they actually move Patrick Kane? Right? Like if you're not bringing back Strome or DeBrincat, like if DeBrincat's actually on the market, then the Blackhawks are saying we don't want to win. Like DeBrincat scores 30 goals falling out of bed by accident.
There's even rumors about Kirby Dach kind of thing, right? So what's going to happen? Like, I know that'd be insane. The only thing I can think of is, Taves and Kane, their contracts only have like 1 year left. Could they really just
2 years for Kane?
Oh, is it? Okay. I thought it was only one, but still, I thought they could look at Connor Bedard coming up and be like, hey, you know what? Let's transition from one star to another kind of thing, right? So maybe they're just going to pack it in and say, let's do everything we can to land the first overall pick in 2023 and then build around Connor Bedard kind of thing, right? So
hell yeah, man. Fuck, having both of Connor McDavid's junior line mates sitting there in Chicago is just a little bit enticing. Like having Ryan Strome and DeBrincat both on the way out. I don't know how the Oilers in a dream fantasy land could ever get one of those guys, but all DeBrincat has ever done is score. It's all he's ever done is score. What did he play as a 17-year-old with Connor McDavid, and they're both 17 years old, tearing up the OHL. What did DeBrincat get 60 goals with McDavid, and everybody said at the end of the season, oh, he's too small. He can't do that again without McDavid. Well, then he had Ryan Strome as a winger. Well, he scored another 60-some goals, and everybody said, wow, Strome's going on to the NHL. Well, the next year he did it again, all by himself. He scored another 60-some goals.
Dylan Strome, sorry.
Oh, my bad. Yeah, how many times did I say
wrong brother. Wow. It's okay.
Wrong Strome. Yeah, wrong Strome for sure. Dylan Strome, thank you. So can DeBrincat or Dylan Strome score 30 goals beside McDavid? Like DeBrincat might score 40.
Yeah, no, I think that'd be a great match if you can reunite them. But just it sounds like DeBrincat's going to be tough, like grab. Like they're gonna, you're gonna have to pay quite the premium kind of thing to get them, right? So that's what I think New Jersey could, if they want to offer up that second overall pick, because Chicago doesn't really have, they lost their pick to Columbus, right? So they don't really have that first round pick there. So Chicago might want to get back in the first round as best they can. And like I said, they might be, they're losing their stars. They're in a transition period. And I think they might just be doing what they can to go for Connor Bedard there. And we'll see what happens, right? So it's a lot of things can happen. And
absolutely. Yeah, it'll be an interesting one for sure. I don't know like the quality, there isn't that star value quality of player available in this one, but I think just the chaos that can come from the draft is something that I'm looking forward to. So we'll cheers a couple of beers that night and see what comes out of it. And since we solved a couple of Buffalo Sabres and Oilers problems there, I don't know, somehow we'll try to get our GMs on the phone and get those ideas in. All right, bud, I think we're going to tie her up for the night here. Even though Michael's a giant baby and took his ball and went home and potentially quit, I'm still going to follow the rules of his show. In which case, our guest gets the last word. You can take 2 minutes, you can take 5 minutes. The rules are I don't get to talk. When you're done, say goodnight, and the show is over, Jeff. Thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it. For all of you guys that are still out there and listening, hop on YouTube. Please hit a subscribe, hit your notifier so that you know when we're coming on. I've been jumping around the different shows. I think I'm Heavy Hockey's new associate host. I'm still doing Straight Off the Pipe. I'm doing some Oilers Live. Kirk and I were talking about starting up a podcast, and well, Kirk is, whether I'm a part of it or not, we'll see. So looking forward to all of that stuff coming. Hit our website, heavyhockey.com. We've got off-season content coming in there and some updated articles on where we think we're going. Jeff, I love you, man. Thanks for doing this with me. Thanks for helping me kick Bear out the door. And the floor is all yours, my friend.
I hate this part, first of all, but I got to do it, right? So I just want to say thanks for having me, Dash. You've been great, man, ever since I got to meet you a few months back. And it's always great to chat with you. And I can chat hockey for hours about lots of topics, man. So it's great to be here. As everybody knows, I love my Sabres. The Sabres are number one, but I just love hockey as a whole. You know, if you want to talk Anaheim or Arizona, I could talk any team you want to talk, right? So Buffalo's always been number one. I feel like they got still some growing pains and still a ways to go. Like I'm not going to expect the playoffs is coming soon this season, right? But Sabres still have a ways to go. And as for the Oilers and you guys, you know, it's tough to see what Holland will do this offseason. You know, this is such a crucial offseason for Holland and what the Oilers are going to do. But, you know, we'll just have to wait and see at this point, right? And see what he does. So best of luck to all you Oiler fans and whatever happens this coming offseason. And it's going to be a fun offseason. It seems like the draft is next week, the free agency is in 2 weeks, and lots of chaos, right? We love chaos, right? So once again, Dash, thanks for having me, and good night, everybody.